Alrighty, we're on 5-3, solving polynomial equations. So we'll start with our problem of the day. Classify the polynomial, describe the end behavior. So to classify it, our highest degree here is a 5, so that would make it quintic. It has 4 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that does not have a special name. It's just going to be a quintic polynomial. It's not trinomial or binomial or monomial because it has more than 3. Our end behavior, so we just look at the highest degree, which is 5. So it's a negative number with an odd exponent. Negative means it ends going up. Odd means they're opposite, so it'll be down, up. And that's our answers. Okay. Today we're solving polynomial equations. We're factoring higher degree polynomials. This is truly stuff we have done before. There's just like one extra little step. So we're factoring. If we were factoring this, first thing we always do is take out our greatest common factor. Greatest common factor between these terms is going to be 3x. When we factor out a 3x, we're left with x squared minus 2x minus 3. And then our factors of negative 3 that add to negative 2, that would be x minus 3, x plus 1. And then we just set each of these things equal to 0 and solve. So when we solve each of those, we would divide by 3, so x is 0. Add the 3 over, so x is 3. Subtract the 1 over, x is negative 1. We're done. This one has 4 terms. When there's 4 terms, they get buddies. And then we take out our greatest common factor. So between x cubed and x squared, greatest common factor would be x squared. When we factor that out, we're left with x plus 1. Between x and 1, all that they have in common is a 1. So we factor out a 1, we're left with x plus 1. So then these are twins. So we just have to write that once, the x plus 1. And then we combine this to make it x squared plus 1. Then we're going to set each of these equal to 0. So x plus 1 equals 0, x squared plus 1 equals 0. And solve both of them. So this one we would just subtract that 1 over, so x is negative 1. On this one, we subtract the 1 over. X squared is negative 1, and then we would have to square root it. The square root of negative 1 is I. So positive or negative I. Because we can't square root negative numbers. 3, we set it equal to 0 before we factor, so we're going to add this over. So I'll switch colors. We have x to the 4th minus 8x squared plus 16 equals 0. And then we need factors of 16 that add to negative 8. Our factors of 16 that add to negative 8 are going to be negative 4, negative 4. Since this is to the 4th power instead of the 2nd power, it's going to be x squared minus 4, x squared minus 4 equals 0. Then we set both of those equal to 0 and solve, which they're the same thing, so you could just write it once and then have a multiplicity of 2 on it. So you add that 4 over, and then square root it. Square root of 4 is positive or negative 2. Same thing on this side. Add the 4 over, square root it. X is positive or negative 2. So you could just write positive or negative 2 with a multiplicity of 2. Okay, number 4 here. Got to set it equal to 0. So plus 7x squared, subtract that 18 over, set it equal to 0. Factors of negative 18 that add to 7 are going to be positive 9 and negative 2. And since this is to the 4th power, we'll do x squared plus 9, x squared minus 2 is 0. And then we set both of these equal to 0 and solve them. So we would subtract the 9 over, then we square root that. The square root of negative 9 is going to be positive or negative 3i. And then here we add the 2 over, square root it, So x is positive or negative square root of 2. There's all my answers. And we have 4 answers here, positive or negative, positive or negative. So that's 4 answers, which we should have 4 answers because it was to the 4th power. And like up here we had 1, 2, 3, 4. It was to the 4th power. Over here we just had 3, negative 1, positive or negative I. It was to the 3rd power. This one we had 3 answers. It was to the 3rd power. So on number 5, this last one, we should get 3 answers since it's to the 3rd power. Okay, this one is kind of a funky one. So this is a difference of cubes. So we factor it. We just follow that pattern that we already know, hopefully. The cubed root of x cubed is x. Cubed root of 1,000 is 10. And then we square this first number, so that'd be x squared. Multiply the numbers together, which would be 10x. Square the second number, which would be 100. And then our signs are same, opposite, plus. Now we're going to set both these equal to 0 and solve. So for the x minus 10 equals 0, that just makes x 10. On this one, there's no factors of 100 that add to 10, so we get to use the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Remember, a is 1, b is 10, and c is 100. And then we just simplify that. So under our radical, we have 100 minus 400, which is negative 300. 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 300, we can split that into 103. And then the square root of 100 is 10. Since it was negative under there, we have an I. So positive or negative 10 I root 3 all over 2. We can go one step further. Everything here can divide by 2. So when we divide both of these by 2, we end up with negative 5 plus or minus 5I root 3. You will not have many problems that are like this one where you end up with the quadratic formula and everything, but hopefully that gives you a good enough idea to get started on that homework.